Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Jam. Cooler and I'm flyer too.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to A1 Forever Presents Dr. Moore, here to fill your fantasy prescriptions for your fantasy lineups. Well, y'all, we are in crunch time, guys and girls. Fantasy playoffs are right around the corner, and today I want to cover all 13 games for this coming Sunday, startums and situms. Let's get right into it as, like I said, it's crunch time and time is winding down on you guys to set in your fantasy lineups. So I want to get this out to you before the London game even take place. Speaking of that London game, Seahawks versus Buccaneers. If you're in a bind at quarterback, I have Seahawks own Geno Smith. I understand he's playing the Bucs and Brady, but Smith has been playing well. He is one of the NFL's leaders in completion percentage, and the Seahawks have rallied behind Smith, so give him a try if you're at a bind at quarterback. Who I'm sitting, I would probably sit Brady in this game because from a fantasy perspective, he just hasn't had it this year. He just hasn't. And Seattle's defense has been playing better over the last few weeks, and I know owners of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans won't enjoy hearing that, but I have Chris Godwin as well, and this week I have to start him, and I'm putting him in at my flex option because just like I said, Brady just hasn't had it. The Bucs really just hasn't had it as a team this season, so we'll see how that one goes. I'm starting Geno, I'm benching Brady, and I'm moving on to the next game here. The next game I have for you guys is the Lions versus the Bears. After the last 2 weeks, I'm going to have to go with Justin Fields here at quarterback. If I'm going to start anyone from the Bears have opened up that playbook for Fields, and last week against the Dolphins was kind of like a glimpse of what Fields could really be. The running back core for the Bears, I believe they can probably get you some fantasy points as well, but Justin Fields, just him being just that dual threat and that playbook opening up for him even more, definitely a guy who could do some justice for your fantasy lineup. I also like the Lions backfield in this matchup. Smith or Williams will do in this matchup. Both can give you value for your lineup. So I believe that that'll be a good start for you guys. I want to move on to quarterback for the Lions. I'm sitting Jared Goff. If you must start him, go ahead. I understand. But opponents who face the Bears this season have the second lowest pass rate. In addition, it's going to be pretty cold. I believe about 30 degrees come kickoff time. Jared Goff doesn't do good in the cold. It shows in his history, and I don't expect him to bounce back all of a sudden now. So in that matchup, that's what I have for you as startums and situms in that matchup. I want to keep on moving here and move on to this Browns versus the Dolphins. I'm not going to mention anything about the Browns run game. I shouldn't have to tell you why you should start Nick Chubb. But don't be surprised that the Browns don't throw the ball a little bit more this game as well, as it turns out that the Dolphins have the second highest pass rate against them at home. So if you don't like the Geno Smith buying at quarterback option, maybe Jacoby Brissett is the man for your lineup. The Browns defense is ranked 15th in passing. So, of course, start Tua this week, and if you have him. His receiving core speaks for itself. Ty Hill, Jalen Waddle, even Gesicki. Mostert out the backfield. So Tua has some weapons, and those are my starts and sits for that particular game. Okay, let's move on to the Broncos and the Titans. This week, may be a good week for the Broncos offense. Yes, can you believe it? I would start Jerry Jeudy here in this matchup. He mostly runs his routes, in the slot from pretty much the stats and just watching a little film. And Wilson should be able to get him some targets this week against these Titans. Now, maybe for a flex option, Melvin Gordon, because the Titans front seven is a little banged up. I know Bud Dupree, he left last week, and I know they're missing another run stopper as well. Can't remember his name at the time, but they're missing him though. So maybe he'll be an option for your flex. But the Broncos haven't made much noise since losing Williams, and honestly, this is a high risk flex option. Putting in Gordon for your flex. For the Titans, honestly, I'm sitting everyone not named Derrick Henry. I expect a full workload for Henry in this game, and he's the only valuable starter in Tennessee right now. I do know that Burks will be back, but this is his first game back. Broncos defense isn't like terrible against the pass, so we'll see how. I would like to see how Burks' first game back will be before I, put any fantasy value on him. All right, let's move on to the Vikings and the Bills here. Quarterback I would sit this week is Kirk Cousins. Cousins and the Vikings are taking on the Bills, and the Bills haven't been generous to opposing quarterbacks this season. Third fewest points surrendered to opposing quarterbacks Buffalo is, so I'm not sure if you want to take that risk unless you have to with Kirk Cousins. I know that Buffalo will be missing Josh Allen, so that makes it hard to really start anybody in the receiving core from Buffalo, but I understand if you have to, I would do it as a flex option if possible. The run game of Singletary and Cooks should be a sneaky start because it's going to be cold, and I expect Buffalo to kind of run the ball a little bit more again with Josh Allen out. With all that being said, sitting Kirk Cousins, I have to start Justin Jefferson this week because I have the Jamar Chase problem. Yeah, I have the Jamar Chase problem, so I'll be starting Justin Jefferson anyway and hoping that at least Kirk Cousins can get him into the end zone, but I really don't believe Kirk will have a good game this week. Okay, we're going to move on to the Texans and the Giants. Saquon Barkley is a must start off of the bye. He's third in rushing yards this season. A third option for the bind at quarterback, if you didn't like the previous two that I've already named, Daniel Jones with the dual threat ability could help your fantasy lineup. The brightest spot for Houston this year has been running back Dameon Pierce, and I can see him making contributions to your lineup this week. Outside of those three players I just named, I would sit everyone else in this matchup or no more than a flex. With that being said, I'm flexing Brandon Cooks because I have to in another league this week. Let's slide to the Jags and the Chiefs. Slide. I would say start the usual suspects for Kansas City: Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce. You can even start wide receivers Hartman and Juju as well. The Chiefs give up the 7th most fantasy points to tight end. So for the other side of the Jags, I would start Evan Ingram, who has been actually paying some dividends the last couple of weeks. I know, especially for me, I've been starting him the last I want to say about 3-4 weeks now, and he's paid dividends for me. Hopefully you have too, and he's been paying dividends for you as well. Outside of him, I would probably start THJ. Since the Jags had went ahead and traded off Robinson, he'll get most of the carries. And sit everyone else I didn't name, please, and thank you. Thank you guys for being a part of this fantasy lineup prescription so far, and I have 6 more games for you. So let's go ahead and strap in and get right to those. Next, we're going to go with the Saints and the Steelers. This should be quick because there's only about 3 players I even trust in this game, if that many. Really only about 2. And that's going to be Alvin Kamara for the Saints, as he's able to, come out the backfield, run the ball, things that Alvin Kamara can do. And honestly, for a sleeper, I'm going to go with George Pickens. Pickens should continue to see more targets since Chase Claypool has been traded. And I really expect George Pickens to show the Steelers that he should be the number 1 option by season's end. I do like Johnson, but I think Johnson should be behind Pickens because Pickens is a crazy talent, and I expect him to get more targets in this game. Next game I'm going to slide to is the Colts and the Raiders. All right. Colts and the Raiders with questions at quarterback for the Colts. The only valuable option is Michael Pittman, and he's even a sleeper flex option this week. Again, can't trust that quarterback. I just can't do it. On the opposing side, Devontae Adams is a starter each week. I mean, he stretches the defense, and he's just a big playmaker. So if you have him, go ahead and start him. And actually go ahead and start Josh Jacobs this week, with it being a good matchup against the Colts, who are very generous against running backs this year. Well, I can't say very generous, but they are generous. Good running backs can get off on them. You just got to, find the creases and the gaps, and they can make it happen. Next, we're going to go to a game that I really, it was hard for me to find the value in this fantasy game, only because it's the Cardinals and the Rams, first of all. And a lot of players are coming in beat up, including Kyler, who's, I believe, still a game time decision. Didn't get a chance to look at that before I started this video. But if he does start, then don't be afraid to start DeAndre Hopkins, because he's been on the tear. I understand about Jalen Ramsey and everything, but I just have faith that D-Hop can be able to still get you some fantasy points for your fantasy lineup. And even though Cooper Kupp is nursing a little ankle injury, I expect him to get his targets as well. You could throw in a Tyler Higbee in as well. He possibly can get you some fantasy points. But really, man, that's about it, man. I know for me, that's really the most fantasy value I can really get out of there. I don't trust the Rams running game at all. I'm not really too fond of the Cardinals run game either. No Hollywood Brown. Allen Robinson has just kind of like I don't even know what to call. I don't want to say he's pretty much washed or anything like that, but he's leaning towards that way. So again, that's the most value that I could find out of this Cardinals and Rams game. Hey, if you guys can find some better value, I'm not gonna lie to you. Salute to you. Moving on, we have just a couple of more games here. The Cowboys versus the Packers. When facing Green Bay this season, running backs averaged the third most yards in the league. So Dallas' run game should be a start. I know Zeke comes back, but Tony Pollard is the real start here, being that Zeke is coming off an injury. Maybe you could throw Zeke in the flex, but I'm starting Tony Pollard if I had the option or two. Poor Aaron Rodgers just can't catch a break this year, y'all. Aaron Jones is playing through an injury. I know he'll probably be on the field, but he possibly may be limited. You may see a little bit more A.J. Dillon. You never know. Romeo Doubs is out, though. Alan Lazard will probably be the flex play here. A pretty good one, too. I have to start Aaron Rodgers in a league myself. Haven't been too fond with starting Aaron Rodgers this year. Coming into the season, I wasn't really fond of it at all either. And it's really played out exactly how I was thinking it was going to be, with no Devontae Adams, a few other moving pieces around. So that's about it for the Packers and the Cowboys. Hopefully, I'm sorry. And also start CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is also a guy that you should start as well. I know Dak is back and everything. CeeDee Lamb should be able to have a good fantasy perspective day for your lineup as well. Didn't want to forget to throw CeeDee Lamb in there. Okay, we're going to the Chargers and the 49ers. This should be a 49er dominant fantasy perspective game. Debo is back, CMC, George Kittle, etc. I would start all those players. I would even start Jimmy G, as he'll have plenty of different weapons to get it to. The Chargers will definitely have their hands full with the 49ers this week, as they're dealing with a few injuries, especially on the offensive end. But I still would start Justin Herbert. Maybe he can get you at least about 17 points, or at least close to it, hopefully. Still having, still having Keenan Allen and Mike Williams out, then that means, like Carter and Palmer, those guys are sleepers. And I mean, Justin Herbert is still a good quarterback. He's going to get the ball around. You know, Austin Eckler is going to be out there. I really shouldn't have to tell you to start him, but start Austin Eckler. You know, and so if any other 49ers players that you have, Brandon Ayuk would be a great option for your lineup as well. Maybe second receiver or flex as well. So don't be afraid of him. Last game, y'all. We made it to the last game. Monday Night Football, Commanders versus Eagles. Eagles are at home, and I'm starting my playmakers against Washington, who gives up the 7th most fantasy points here. And it's hard to really start any of the Commander players this week. But of course, if you have to, like me, play the number ones and guys who can make a difference, like Gibson, Robinson, you know, Scary Terry, you know, those kind of guys like that. And you should hopefully have a little success on your fantasy lineup with those guys. Well, I want to say thank you guys. If you stayed the entire duration of the urgent care from Dr. Moore with the fantasy prescriptions for your fantasy lineups, thank you all. Peace and blessings to you. Good luck on your fantasy lineups. Please come back for more content from A1 Forever Sports and me, Dr. Moore. I will definitely continue to do these as the fantasy football season continues, as we're pushing to the playoffs. Thank you again, and I will holler shortly.
A1, 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 A1. Yeah, truly. Cooler and I'm flyer too. Jam. Cooler and I'm flyer too.